Good morning, everybody. We are finishing up our life course series today. And if you have been following along, which I'm sure all of you have been following along all through this series that we're in, life course is about the course that the net is going to be offering beginning this month, the third Sunday this month, immediately after church. We're going to have some food for you, and then we're going to do our first leg of the life course, which is Who is God? And if you remember the first week of this series, we talked about that. God. God is the first leg of the course, or He's the first, that's the subject of the first part of the course. And then, so on God, and then who we are, and how we relate to God, and then us as collectively as the church. That's what we talked about last week. And then today we are talking about them. And that will be the fourth installment of our life course that we're offering here. Now, I want to say this about the life course. Like I said, it'll be we're going to start the first one, which is about God, and it's for anybody. Whether you've been following Jesus for a short time or like me, you've been at this for a long time, years and years, decades. This is for everybody, and it's designed to be an interactive course, and no matter where you are in your relationship with God, it's designed to help you to, if you haven't already, to discover the abundant life that Jesus offers. And that was the aim of this whole course, to discover the abundant life that Jesus promises. You know, if He promises us abundant life, shouldn't we want to have that working in us? And so that's what the series is all about. That's what the life course is all about. And each month we will offer, on one Sunday afternoon, we will offer a new installment. It'll go through all four, and you can jump in any time, at any point, and just start there and then just continue. You don't have to take the first one first and then the second and the third. You can jump in any time. So that's what this series is all about. And today is our last one, and we are talking about them. Now, who is them? Who them is? Who them are? Who are they? We're talking about the people who are friends of ours, people who we know, people we work with, people in our own families who are outside of the faith. They don't believe. They have not yet become believers. Who are they? Now, you may have an idea of who they are or what they are, but today I want you to get this one thing crystallized in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, that these people who have not yet come to faith in Jesus, that these people, they are our brothers and sisters. And you might say, well, this guy that I work with, there ain't no way. He ain't never going to come to Jesus. Well, you might be surprised because God looks at him in a different way. Do you know that the nature of Christ is possible for each one of us? Anyone who says, hey, I want to be a Christian, I want to know God, they qualify. They qualify. And the Apostle Paul said in Romans 10, he said, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everyone. That's everybody. That's even the guy at work that you just can't see that this is ever going to happen. You know, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But then he goes on. He says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? How can you call on someone that you've not believed in? And how can they believe in one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And this is very common sense stuff. How can they believe, how can they call on the one that they've not believed in? How can they believe in the one that they have not heard? And how can they hear unless someone preaches or tells them about Jesus? He keeps on going. He says, And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. This is awesome. How beautiful is it for the person who brings the good news? And you might think, well, I just don't know how to do this, and we're going to talk about this today. We're going to get real about what our role is in spreading the good news of Jesus. We're just going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Okay, we're not gonna be religious about it. We're not gonna talk about things that are just churchy words and stuff like that. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna get down to brass tacks today. So this is what the burden is for us, is to spread this good news to the people that we are around, the people that God puts us in contact with. And I just want to share this quote with you by Charles Spurgeon. I debated about whether to share this because it's pretty. You could perceive this as harsh, but he says, "Someone asked, will the heathen who have never heard the gospel be saved?" And we asked that question. I've been asked that question so many times. How about the people who've never heard? How about these people who have live in an area of the world, they've never heard the gospel? Will they be saved? It's a common question. He says, it is more a question with me whether we who have the gospel and fail to give it to those who have not can be saved. You ever thought about that? We have a burden. We have a burden. And so the next question that I want to ask is, who are we? Now that we've established who they are, who are we? Because a lot of us would say, who are we? Who am I to go and share the gospel with someone else? Well, you might find out it's a little bit different than maybe what you were taught in Sunday school. Maybe it's a little different than what you were, like I was, what you were taught, especially when I would go off to church camps, and I grew up in the Methodist church, and we were not big into evangelism and sharing our testimony and that kind of thing. But I would always go with my Southern Baptist friends because they had a better youth program most of the time. I would go with my Southern Baptist friends off on a retreat or go to some function that they were having. And they would scare me to death with their theology, about sharing the gospel and the rapture and all that kind of stuff. I would come back, my eyes wide open, scared, I would come, this is the truth. I would go home sometimes from school. I'd come home from school or come home, and my parents were supposed to be there, but they weren't there. And I would say, oh my gosh, it must have happened. And I'm left behind. Because I knew what a miserable wretch that I was. And so I was, but some of those things that we learned growing up are not actually biblical. And we're going to talk about some of that today. So who are we? Who are we to go and share the gospel? All right. Jesus, when he was about to ascend into heaven, he gathered his disciples around. And this is what he said. And he gathered them around, and they asked him. And this is a question like most of us want to ask God. They say, Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom to Israel? If you remember last week, if you were here last week, we talked about the fact that the Jews, they all believed that the Messiah was going to come and he was going to restore political power back to Jerusalem, back to Israel, and that Israel was going to rule, and that the Messiah was going to rule through Israel. But Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. And they, when they gathered around him, they asked this question, Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom of Israel to Israel? And this is a question that is just so like people to want to ask. And Jesus said to them, he said, it's not for you to know the times or the dates the Father has set by his own authority. It's not for you to know. This thing that we're always so focused on, what's going to happen? When is it going to happen? Well, you've probably, if you've been around church long, you know that there are a lot of people who are asking these questions, and they're going through the Bible, and they're trying to figure out what's going to happen and when is it going to happen. And I want to know these things. And we want to know it because as humans, we want to be in control. I'm like this myself. I tell Lene, do not surprise me with anything. Don't surprise me with a trip. I don't want to be surprised with a trip. Don't surprise me with a party. I don't want to be surprised with a party. I don't even want to be surprised with a special dinner or anything. Surprises scare me to death because I so want to be in control. That's the reason I've never had trouble. I'm just being honest with you. I've never had trouble with alcohol or drugs or anything like that because I want to be in control 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't ever want to be out of control. That's my nature. And that is really the nature of mankind. We want to be in control, some more than others. He says, it's not for you to know the times and the dates. The Father has set by His own authority, but now He gets to the main thing. He said, but you will receive, this is what you will receive. You won't receive all the answers that you want. He said, but you will receive power. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses. We're going to talk about this. He says, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and to the ends of the earth. He says, this is what you're going to be when you receive the Holy Spirit, when you have contact with me, whenever you receive forgiveness, whenever you receive my grace, whenever you receive my compassion and my love, whenever you have an experience with me, you will be my witnesses. All the time when I was growing up, I had Sunday school teachers and I had people that I knew in the church. And like I said, I would go on these retreats and camps and things like that. And it always seemed, the message to the kids that I was with, the message that they would always give us, it always seemed to be something around this word witness. You need to witness to your friends. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need a witness. You need a witness. They were using witness as a verb. Okay? And witness can be used as a verb, but not like they were using it as a verb. What they were really talking about is testifying. But they were saying witness. A witness is someone who has heard something, seen something, experienced something. If you've ever been a witness in a court case, you're there on the stand because you have experienced something. You've seen something, you've heard something, you felt something. Something happened that you were a part of, that you experienced that thing. And so you became a witness. And when you were experiencing that thing, you were witnessing it. That's the way the verb is used. But the way the church has used it is that we should go and witness to people. Well, you can't testify. Or that's really what they're saying. You can't testify unless you've witnessed something. People don't call you into court and put you on the stand if you haven't witnessed something. So if you have been connected with God in some way, if you have received His forgiveness, if you have received His healing, if you have received His redemption, if you have been connected with Him, then you are a witness. And what can you witness about? You can witness about what has happened to you. That's what you can do. And so Jesus says, you will be my witnesses. Now, if you haven't witnessed something, you don't have anything to testify about. And that was what was the problem with a lot of the teaching that I received, Christian teaching I received growing up, is that they were asking kids who had not witnessed anything to go out and testify. You can't really introduce somebody to someone that you don't know, right? That's really hard. You walk up to a stranger and say, hey, I got a friend I want to introduce you to. They'll think you're crazy. I don't even know you, you know? it helps a lot to know the one that you are testifying about. It helps to know Jesus if you want to introduce somebody to Jesus. It helps a lot. So, this is what we are. This is what we are. We are witnesses. Now, there is a quote by a woman named Sally Koch, and she says, "Great opportunities to help others seldom come, but small ones surround us daily." And she's exactly right about this. It's very rare that there is this situation in which you can be the superhero that flies in and saves the day for somebody. We fantasize about those kinds of things, right? But they seldom happen. But we are surrounded by opportunities, small opportunities to help people daily. And Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him take up his cross and follow me. Let him take up the same burden that I have, and that is to love people. He said the greatest two commandments, love God. He said the second one is like it, love people. And that's where we get our purpose statement here at the Net. We worship God and we help people. We made action items out of those two things. Love God, we worship Him. And love people, we help people any way we can. A couple of weeks ago, my son Houston played this is the first year that he's played football, and he wanted to be on the football team. He's in 8th grade. He wanted to be on the football team, and so he's one of these kids he's just very kind and very loving and very caring, and he's just not one of these aggressive like Hampton, my first son. I mean, he was tough, and when Houston wanted to play football, I told him, I said, "Buddy, you think you're up for this? Not everybody has to play football." No, I think I can do it, Dad. So he started playing football, and he went to the practices, and he just naturally sweats a lot, and he has a little trouble with the heat. And I thought that he was going to have trouble with the heat and all the conditions that you have to practice under here in this hot summer. And he has done so well. I mean, he has gone to every practice, and he does what is expected of him, and he stays late after school, and it's like 5:30 before he gets home in the afternoons. And I've just been amazed at how well he's done. Well, he had his first game, and he didn't drink enough water at his first game. I guess he was excited, so we were sitting there and we were watching the game, and I kept looking at him and I kept thinking he's not drinking enough water. And we were sitting in the stands on the 50-yard line, and we were sitting there in the stands, and Lene and I were just enjoying being there and enjoying the game. And there were these two guys, a teenager and one a little bit younger, sitting in front of us, these two boys, and they're with their mom. And then their mom got up and she left. I don't know where she went. She went maybe to the concession stand, or she went somewhere. And it was just the two boys left there. And so the hot dog lady came along. And the hot dog lady was saying, hot dogs. And one of the boys said, "Ma'am, how much is a hot dog?" And she said, $3. And he sat back down. He said, "That's okay, thanks." And so Lene said, "Ma'am, I want to buy one of those hot dogs." Just like that. This is the way Lene is. This is the way my wife is. She says, "Give me one of those hot dogs." And she gave it to the little guy. And so he thanked her, and he said, "This is not necessary. It's not necessary." And she said, "No, you're hungry. I have boys of my own, and I just want to give you a hot dog." And I have to tell you what a wretched soul that I am. I have to confess this to you. The thought actually went through my mind, and I'm ashamed to say this, but the thought actually went through my mind. Man, if there's some people sitting around us here and they know who we are, they're going to know that we live our faith at the Net. they're going to know that the pastor and his wife, they buy hot dogs for kids who don't have enough money for hot dogs, and this is a good thing for us. And then a few minutes later, the lady comes back. And I'm talking about the mother. She comes back, and she sits down, and Lene says, "Ma'am," she said, "I hope you don't mind. Your son was asking about a hot dog, and I bought him a hot dog. Is that okay?" And the lady said, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much." And I said, "Wow, getting a lot of play out of this. She's announced it to everybody around that she bought the hot dog. If anybody missed it the first time, now they'll be able to hear it the second time, and they'll know what gracious, loving, humble people we are at the Net." And honestly, it didn't even hit me. I didn't even think, wow, that's really prideful of you, Rob. It didn't hit me. That's how oblivious I am. Lene says I have the oblivious gene. So a few minutes later, the game was over. And Houston comes over, and he's got his helmet on. And he comes over and to where we are, and he's just like this. And I could see that he was in trouble. And so I immediately jumped over the fence thing to where he was, and I got down to where he was, and this woman who we had bought the hot dog for her son, this woman, she said, "Hey, he needs water." And I looked around, and the water buckets that were for the team, they were empty. There was no water there. I had just drunk the last water that we had brought. There was no water. And the closest water would be to, take off 100 yards down to the concession stand and try to get in line. And I was in need because it was my son standing here, and he's about to pass out from, the heat. And so this woman, she calls to her son. She calls his name. She says, "Help Houston get his pads off." And, it's been a long time since I had a football uniform on, and I didn't really understand how to get these pads off. And this boy comes over, and he takes his helmet off. He gets Houston's helmet off. He reaches under there, and he unstraps the pads, and he yanks the pads off. And this woman, she gives me an ice-cold water. And I poured it over his head and over his chest, and then he drank about half of it. And it really saved him from passing out or whatever was about to happen there. And I didn't realize it until later that day as we got him home. We got him hydrated, got plenty of fluids in him. And then he ate lunch, and then I got in my truck and I started down the road to do something. And I realized that this woman that I thought I had helped, or that Lene had helped, I realized she had been Christ to me in that situation. She had been Christ to me in that situation. This is what Martin Luther said. He said, "It is the duty of every Christian to be Christ to his neighbor." It is the duty of every Christian to be Christ to our neighbors. It's really a simple thing. You have to think in a different way. It's a simple thing, but we can do it. It's not something that is beyond our reach. It's not something that is beyond our control. There's a story that I love. When Jesus is gathering his disciples, and one of his disciples, Philip, thinks of a friend of his, and he just goes to invite him. And this is what it looks like. Philip found Nathanael, his buddy Nathanael, and he told him, he said, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Now, whenever we invite somebody into the kingdom, whenever we invite somebody to come to church, whenever we do the inviting, whenever we tell somebody our story, it's not that hard to have this conversation, because Jesus promised all of us this. He said, "In this world you will have trouble." If you just look around you and find someone who has some trouble, you have the answer. You're walking around with the answer, and there are people all around us who have trouble. And so these conversations are not really hard to have. You see somebody that's having trouble, and you say, "Hey, I had some trouble. Let me tell you what I did. I prayed, or somebody prayed for me. Do you mind if I pray for you? I'll pray for you." And most people that are going through trouble will say, "Thank you. I appreciate that." Philip just simply went to his friend Nathanael, and he said, "We found the one Moses wrote about in the law." And he said, he's Jesus, and he's from Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And this is what Nathanael said. And this is kind of what we get sometimes. He says, Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" And Philip just said, "Come and see. Just come. Come with me. Come and see." And so Nathanael went, and he saw Jesus. And whenever Jesus saw him coming, he's with his disciples, and he says to the rest of them, he says, "Look at this new guy. Look at Nathanael." He said, "This is a man who has no deceit in his heart." No deceit. And Nathanael said, "How do you know me?" And Jesus said, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip came to get you." And Nathanael said, just at that, Nathanael said, "Well, you must be the Son of God." See, Nathanael had found the answer. Nathanael found what he had been looking for just because his friend said, "Come and see." We have these invite cards in the back, and let me just tell you what my mindset is. This is the mindset of Lene and me and our church leadership, our board. We are not trying to get people to come to this church so that they can serve us. That's not it at all. Our ambition here is to help as many people as we can. And I'm going to tell you something. When I see things like I just saw this week, my wife, Lene, started a purpose group, and her group helps the guys that live at the Harris home. It's a home for boys where they it's like a foster care for about 14 guys. And Kathy Bernard was, if you were here a few weeks ago, we had her up on the stage, and we commissioned her to do this Bible study at the Harris home. Well, she's doing this Bible study at the Harris home now, and almost all the guys, maybe all the guys are coming, but it's about 14 guys in the Bible study. She needed some help, and we talked to Randy Pickett, and we said, "Could you come and help?" And he said, "Sure." And so now we have these boys who are coming to this Bible study every week, and it's almost if it's not 100%, it's almost 100% participation there at the Harris home. And these guys have now said, we want to come to Miss Lene's church. They want to come here. So now we have a burden to figure out a way to get those guys here. And First Stop has said, we have a van. We don't use it right now, and we don't have insurance on it right now because we're not using it. But maybe we could, maybe you could use this van. So we're trying to figure out how we can use this van to get people here, get the Harris homeboys here on Sunday morning, and to get people here for Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is doing fantastic. We had 47 people right here last Sunday night for Celebrate Recovery. 47 people. Sometimes we've had as many as 60 here for Celebrate Recovery. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing what's happening here at the Net. And it's not hard. You just say, can I help you? I carry these cards around with me. And there are these little business cards. They're back on the back table if you want to grab some on the way out. And whenever I'm talking to somebody, because I look at everybody as somebody that we could help, or could potentially join us in helping others. And so I tell them the story about this church a lot. And I just pull this out and I say, check out our new website. This is actually the picture of the front of the website. And then it's got all our information on the back here. And I give this out to the people that I talk to. And it's just as easy as it could be. And so that's what Lene and I do. It's a very easy way to say, come and see. And do you know who we are here collectively? We talked about it last week. We are the body of Christ. This is something for people to come and see. We have one spirit among us. We have one heart among us. We have this nature of Christ that we share among us in our midst. And whenever we invite someone to come and see and we bring them here, they have come to a place where they can see and experience Christ, if not through the worship, if not any other way, just by the kindness of the people that are here. And you are kind people. I know that I'm past my time. I want to tell you one more thing. This week, Lene got a call from the Harris home, from Mr. Wynn over there, and he said, hey, we have a little problem over here. We've got a concert scheduled for tonight, and our staff members, we're short on staff members. We've got some people out sick. And he said, could you maybe help us get the food together? Within 2 hours, Lene's group had come together, and they had gotten this whole meal prepared. And it happened for those kids just like that, on the spur of the moment. And they were able to see and hear their concert there that night. And it was a great experience. And I'll bet you, when Lene came home, she was so full. She was just so full. She said, I'm just so blessed. We are so blessed. This is the kindness and the love of Jesus that is happening in all of our groups. We've got all these groups. I can't name all the groups that are happening in this church, a church this size. But it's what's happening here at the church. And I'm very excited about it. And I want you to be excited too. And I hope that the love of Christ has touched you through the people of this church. And I hope that as we leave here, that we look at everybody we come into contact as a brother, a potential brother or sister in Christ, and that we could be the one, like Philip, that says, come and see.